Welcome to day 25 of Purpose Driven Church for Unificationists. Today we're starting on chapter 8, Applying Your Purposes. So I really like this chapter a lot so far. One of the things that he starts off by saying is that applying your purposes is actually the most difficult part of becoming a purpose-driven church. He says that many churches have tried to implement different aspects of being a purpose-driven church. For example, they've defined their purposes and they've developed a purpose statement. They regularly communicate with their members, and they've even reorganized their structure to try to fulfill those purposes. But he says that a purpose-driven church must go one step further and rigorously apply its purposes to every part of the church: programming, scheduling, budgeting, staffing, preaching, and so forth. The application of your purposes will require months, maybe even years, of praying, planning, preparing, experimenting. Take it slow, focus on progress, not perfection. So I think this is really a meaningful section, because what I get out of what Rick Warren is saying is that it's not enough just to have a purpose statement and make little efforts here and there to achieve that purpose statement, or just to have a purpose statement and continue to do what we're doing, hoping that just by having a clear purpose that will accomplish more. He says that, if you really want to accomplish this purpose and you really want to grow and develop your ministry, then in a sense, you have to kind of throw everything behind that purpose. And I kind of see it like a world-class athlete, somebody who has this purpose in their mind, like that they're going to become a world-class athlete. I don't know what it takes to become a world-class athlete, but I imagine that it really takes a lot of effort and commitment, and you have to change certain things in your life. You can't just make this determination to become a world-class athlete and buy some books on what it means to be a world-class athlete, work out a couple times a week or something like that. It's probably not going to be enough. But if you're really serious about it, you're going to change probably, maybe you got to wake up early before work so that you can train. Maybe you have to rearrange your whole social life so that you can invest more time into preparing yourself. Maybe you have to change the way you eat. Maybe you have to change the way you sleep. More likely than not, if you really believe in it and you're really committed to it, you're going to have to restructure your whole life around accomplishing this goal. And I feel like the church really should be the same way, or anything like a business or family. If you have a certain kind of a thing you want to accomplish, I think that it's not enough just to have a purpose and make little efforts here and there to try to accomplish that purpose and hope it happens. Realistically, we need to probably, and according to what Rick Warren says, is to invest, to throw all the resources behind accomplishing this purpose. Otherwise, it kind of seems like if you don't do that, you're not really that serious about accomplishing it. So Rick Warren then starts talking about there's 10 areas that you must consider as you begin to reshape your church into a purpose-driven church. So the first area is that we're going to talk about today is assimilating new members on purpose. So when Rick Warren started, they didn't have any community, right? And you might remember that he talked about these circles of commitment, right? You start with the crowd, then you have the congregation, so on and so forth. And they got started by just reaching out to the community and finding people. And many of these people, sounds like most of these people weren't even religious. They didn't have maybe even a background in Christianity or whatnot, but they were drawn to what they were talking about. He says that this is kind of unusual in a sense, because a lot of people give the advice that when you're starting a new church, that you start off with like a core group of people, and that core group of people, you kind of disciple them, and you kind of develop a really tight group, and then you expand from there. But what he's saying is that he suggests that you do the opposite. I guess especially when you're starting with nothing. But he says the problem I have found with the inside-out approach is that by the time the church planner has discipled his core, they have often lost contact with the community and are actually afraid of interacting with the unchurched. He says the problem with most small churches is that they are all core and nothing else. The same 50 people come to everything the church does. They've all been Christians for so long that they have few, if any, unbelieving friends to witness to. A church with this problem needs to learn how to develop the other 4 circles. So it's interesting that he says that, because when I look at a lot of our communities, our churches in America, I see something very similar. I see that those communities have had the same dedicated members for a long time, and that those are the same people who are doing everything. And oftentimes you see them doing this even like throughout multiple organizations, UPF, ACLC, Women's Federation. You see the same people doing all those things. And it's not necessarily bad. I mean, it's definitely a sign of dedication and sincere effort. But at the same time, what he's saying is that, if we really want to have the heart to grow, then we need to look at this as we need to see this as an opportunity for development, where we need to open ourselves to be able to bring in these people who are in other circles, who are not these dedicated members, who are new people and whatnot, and be able to develop and nurture those people. So he basically kind of goes on there for talking about the first 3 years of Saddleback, and how, because they started with nothing, they really had basically a really fresh group at the beginning. And the whole first year was spent on just bringing those people from a point where they were just casually attending and not really having any interest in helping out or giving back, to becoming people who at least felt that the commitment or the desire to come and support in some small way. Then over the course of the next 3 years, he made very focused and intentional effort to raise those people through various levels of development. He says, "I still remember the excitement of watching how God began transforming a crowd of self-absorbed attenders into a loving congregation of members." He says there was a natural progression. He said they were building a multi-dimensional ministry by assimilating new members in a purposeful way, focusing on one level of commitment at a time. But it takes time to develop that commitment. It takes time to develop quality, and it takes time to move people through the circles of commitment. He says that he really emphasizes that this doesn't happen quickly, and which is fine, because he uses the analogy of a mushroom versus an oak tree. An oak tree will take 60 years to grow, and a mushroom can happen in 6 hours. And so obviously, which one do we want to have? So I think that that's really interesting and something to really look at in terms of where we're going and what we want to do. And that's all I have for today, and see you tomorrow.